to my channel, Sharon Cullen Art. It's been a few minutes, I know, and I apologize for that. I've been really super busy, and I've been dealing with a lot. For those of you who follow me on Instagram, you likely already know the situation. But a few weeks ago, my dad had taken a turn for the worse. He's been in hospice for several months, and I had to go down to the city to help take care of him. My sister was doing the majority of the work, checking on him daily, and it was getting really hard for her. When I got there my first day, I had packed a couple days worth of clothes, well, maybe 5 days worth of clothes. And when I saw him the first day and took him down for dinner, when he came back, he was a little bit frantic. I had left because my sister was cooking dinner for me, and I was staying at my sister's home, and neither of us spent the night with him. But by the next morning when I saw him, I told my sister, we can't leave him alone anymore. He's going to need a caregiver around the clock. So the hospice nurse said, she could give us these caregiver lists. And I said to my sister, I'd rather care for him myself. And she said, well, Sharon, you're going to burn out. So we decided to take turns. One day I would stay overnight. The next day she would. So we would do shifts. So whoever stayed overnight left in the morning when the other one arrived, who stayed all day. And then, well, not all day. We kind of split it, where we showed up twice in a day, or maybe I stayed, I don't remember, but then I would stay overnight. So it would be like 24 hours on, 10 hours off, 24 hours on, 10 hours off, that kind of a deal. And then my niece, whose husband has, my nephew, who has the AML, I'll update you on him in a minute. This is a long story, you guys, so I think I'm not going to get much painting done today. Her kids were sick, and she kept thinking it was sinuses. It wasn't sinuses. So my sister-in-law, who is ill with pulmonary fibrosis and is on oxygen, and my 72-year-old brother went over to take care of the kids so that my niece could go visit my nephew, her husband, at the hospital, because he was still in the hospital. And he had been bottomed out with his bone marrow. They zap you of all your bone marrow before transplant. So he had nothing to fight with. And of course she wore a mask and everything. But a couple days later, or the next day then, I see my brother and my sister-in-law who are visiting, and people are coming and going visiting my father, and he's still oriented and everything. And then the next day we get a call, I have COVID. Like, oh shoot. And so my brother got it, my sister-in-law got it, my niece and her 2 kids had it, and my nephew, who was in the hospital with AML, we were like freaking out over, because he had no bone marrow to fight anything, but luckily he never got it. Thank you, Lord. And then my sister, who had gone outside of my father's apartment, he was in an enhanced living, not quite assisted living, but enhanced living. It's like a step up from senior living, where you can hire people for certain skills that you may need, and you pay for each skill above your rent and all that. Well, there was a bench outside, so my sister and my brother went outside. My brother, my oldest brother, he just idolized my father, idolized him. He was struggling. He struggles with grief really really hard. It's his son who has AML, his wife who has pulmonary fibrosis, and his father's dying. So he was a mess. So my sister, and they had masks on, my sister was sitting with him, talking with him, and he started to cry, had to blow his nose, took his mask off and everything. And the next day, my sister had COVID. Oh my God. It was just a comedy of errors. And I thought, oh my God, this leaves me. I have another brother, but he works. He's still working. I believe he's 65, but he's still working. So I'm the baby, and I'm 60. So anyway, that left me to care for my dad, and it was not easy. I was exhausted. I was getting no sleep. We got a hospital bed in his bedroom and pushed his queen-size bed up against the wall. The bedroom's very large, and I slept on the queen-size bed. I just slept in my clothes on top of the bed with a blanket because I was up and down all night, you know. And his breathing started to change, and I thought, oh my gosh. You know, for those of you who might be new here, I'm a registered nurse. I've seen death and dying. I worked oncology. I worked intensive care. I've seen it. I've seen it all, pretty much. So, needless to say, that night I was sleeping with my chin on his bed rail, just sleeping like this, falling asleep and feeling for his chest to rise. Well, in the morning, the night before we put him to bed, I had to call my sister to come over. This was before she knew she had COVID. And I had to call her to come over to help me. No, she knew she had COVID and she had been kicked out by the facility. So I let her in the back door because I could not handle him on my own. And he walked into the bathroom, and he was using my walker, the kind with the brakes and the seat on it. And we were trying to help him get ready for bed. My sister, we had so much fun. We laughed with my father. We cried with my father. I just had wonderful memories with my dad, which was awesome. But anyway, he wanted to brush his teeth. And so my sister puts this big long stripe of toothpaste on his toothbrush. It was an electric one, but it was one of the longer kind, not the round kind. I use the round kind. And I just always put a pea size on. My girlfriend, who's a dental hygienist, says you don't need to use a lot of toothpaste, and you really don't. You're spitting most of it out. So she put this long thing on, and before she got it up to his mouth, I said, Donna, wait. Shoot. I don't usually say their names on camera because I want to protect their privacy. But anyway, she won't care. So she goes to pull back, and she hits the power button, and toothpaste is flying all over the bathroom. My dad's laughing, I'm laughing, she's laughing. Tears are running down her face. I'm like, shut it off, shut it off, shut it off. So she shuts it off. And I said, just use a little bit because I don't want him to choke on the foam. He's getting weaker, and he was having difficulty swallowing, and he had pretty much stopped eating. He had an Ensure shake that morning, but he had completely stopped eating at that point. So I knew it wasn't going to be long. He had been eating very, very little for 2 days prior to that, and it had slowly decreased. But anyway, so I knew we didn't have much longer. He wasn't taking in enough liquids either. He was shutting down. So we had him sit on the walker to get ready for bed and washed him up and everything. And he was beginning to get confused, and it was really sad. He said at one point, I know I live here, but I don't understand. I'm lost. And it just broke my heart. It broke my heart. But anyway, we got him into bed. We had to get his pajamas on, because he wanted to wear clothes that day to go say goodbye to all of his friends, but ended up sleeping and never got to do it. So we're putting his pajamas on. My sister's hustling, and I'm like, wait a minute, slow down. She pulls his pants up, and his oxygen tubing is wrapped in his pants. I'm like, no, you can't do it that way, you know. So she undid it, and I showed her how it was done and all that. Finally get him dressed. We're still laughing. We get him into bed and get him all tucked in. So that night, his breathing started to change. I was hearing more rattling, you know, and I thought, oh. So I had my chin on the bed rail most of the night, and I would doze off, and then I'd wake up and I'd doze off. In the morning, I woke up at about, it was about 3:30 in the morning, and I gave him morphine. He hadn't been wanting to take it, but he was starting to struggle a little bit. So I started giving him morphine and increasing the dose to a dose that would help him get some rest. Then I called my family and I said, his oxygen saturation is dropping. It's down to 68 or 70, 68. And I said, if you're going to get here, you need to get here. Well, my poor brother and sister-in-law and sister could not come because they had COVID. Do you know how horrible it is? But I told them, come, just come, you know. I'll let you in the back door. Screw them. What are they going to do? Kick us out? We're leaving anyway, you know. And we were staying away from all the residents. And he was at the end of one of the hallways, so there was a door, an exit door that we could go in and out and stay away from the lobby and all of that. So my sister ended up coming after he had passed away. But that day he was declining. I prayed with him. I played my harp for him. He told me he loved me. He gave me a hug that morning. And then he started to go to sleep. And before he passed away, he was getting agitated and his hands started flailing, which is normal, you know. So I said, you know, this morphine doesn't seem to be holding him long enough. He could have it every hour, but in 45 minutes he was getting agitated again. So I went to get his Ativan. And I went out of the room and I came back in and I sat down next to his head on the bed that I had been sleeping on, right on the edge of the bed, because they were pushed like right together. And he raised his hand up like this, and then he raised both of them up like this, and he held them out strong, really strong. And then he brought them down. And things changed. And the death rattle was getting so bad, the medication didn't help. And I thought, I could handle it because I'm a nurse. I've heard it a million times. It's just there's secretions that get stuck because they're no longer swallowing. And it was horrible watching him suffer, though. But anyway, I bent down to his ear. My niece was across from me. I had a nephew sitting next to me, and I bent down to his ear. I had my cheek up against his face. The head of the bed was he was up at the head, feet down here, and I was sitting, and I put my face up against his, and I said a prayer, and I said, God, please don't let him suffer anymore. Just take him. And then I heard, and he was gone. Just like that. My niece said, oh my God, Sharon, that was amazing. That was amazing. And I thought to myself, I'm not ready yet. I'm not ready. But he was 94. He was ready. So it was a good thing. But this is why you haven't seen me, because I'm a mess like this. I'll be okay. One thing I forgot to add is that as my father was passing away, another niece had arrived to visit. She had gotten off of work and came over. She was wearing a paper mask because she had also been with the niece who had the COVID, who unfortunately accidentally spread it to people. But she said she was going to go home and test herself. And after my father passed away, she went home and we all get notified that she also had COVID. That was her second time. She had COVID when the Delta variant went through, and then she had COVID again when the Omicron came through. So it's a good thing that we waited on the memorial because, yeah, there were too many sick people. So. And for those of you who are going to be asking, yes, I did test myself. I tested myself for 5 days, and I was negative, thankfully. The first day I tested twice because I screwed up the first test. I had to pinch and tape close something on this testing kit I had. But they were all negative. I never got sick, and all was well. Oh, what else has been going on in my world? Oh, my nephew with AML. He had his bone marrow transplant. He never bottomed out. I mean, his marrow bottomed out, but he himself stayed so strong. And I thought somebody was he stayed so strong, and he built his bone marrow back up like that, like overnight. It was like bam, 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 bam. My other nephew, who had donated his stem cells to his older brother, is 36, and they had over 5 million cells, which is a huge number. And bam, he was good. He was out of the hospital. But then everybody got COVID. He couldn't go home to his home because his wife and his kids had COVID. His older daughter, the oldest child, I think she's 5. Maybe she's almost 6. I don't know. She had already gotten over it. So she must have been the one brought it home from school or something. And then my little nephew got it, and then their mom got it. And so he was ready to go home, and he couldn't go home. And then he was going to stay with us at my sister and brother-in-law's house, because they have a basement that could be made into a full apartment. It's got a kitchen, it's got a living room, fold-out bed, it has a full spa, bathroom, everything you would need, even a washer and dryer to do laundry. So they could stay away from him if need be, but we were concerned about the safety of that. So then he had to scramble to find another place to live. So he ended up staying with his in-laws, and then eventually he got back home. He had his bone marrow biopsy last week. I don't know what the results were, but no news is good news. So I'm hoping everything is good. So what else is going on in my world? I was feeling better. I've been dieting. I don't know if you guys can see. I've been losing weight. I am down 31 pounds right now, or 32, something like that. And I'd like to lose about 40 more. Well, how much do I weigh? 40 more would be awesome. Really, really awesome. But yeah, so all I'm doing is watching what I eat. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Livestrong. I used this app many, many moons ago, but it's called My Plate. And basically all I do is I write down everything I've eaten in the day. So like my lunch, 326 calories, and I tracked everything that was in my lunch. And I can track my weight and my water intake. It tracks my macros for me so that I can look at how many fats, carbs, proteins I've had for the day, all of that stuff. Hard getting the protein in, I find. That is really super hard. My chair keeps twisting. But anyway, so that's been going on. Then I went to my pain clinic a week ago, and I had been feeling so good, but I get these highs and lows with my pain patch because I'm still taking fentanyl pain patch. Now, don't freak out, people. I know you hear a lot of stuff on TV, but you can see that I'm not high. I'm not, I've been on this for years for pain. I do drug testing regularly. I don't drink. I don't smoke pot. I don't do any of that kind of stuff. So my problem is that every 48 hours when I go to change my patch, that second day I was crashing. I think that I burn it off a little too quickly, and then there's not enough medication there to get me through. And I get hot, and then I get the sweats, and it burns the rest of it off, and it's like a withdrawal thing. So when I went into the pain clinic, I said to him, I think I'm ready to try to drop my dose again. Now, after my surgery, I had dropped my dose before surgery. I was on 37 mics, wanted to get down to 25 so that I wouldn't run into the breathing issues and the respiratory arrest that I had with my previous neck surgery. So I still had the breathing issues, but they didn't last as long. But I got my dosage down to 25. With the neck surgery, I had been on 50. And so to give me medication post-op, they didn't have a lot of room, and I was not getting pain control. So they kept increasing the dosage until I stopped breathing. Also, I have trouble coming out of anesthesia, which causes the problem. So I made sure the anesthesiologist was aware of that and all that. And by midnight, I was okay. I was down to 25, and they wanted to up me back to 37 the next morning after my surgery. And I said, no, I can handle the pain. I can handle surgical pain. Surgical pain's a breeze. That's nothing like chronic pain. For those of you who have never suffered with severe chronic pain, surgical pain is nothing. That is nothing. It's a flash in the pan, and it's over within a couple weeks. And I can handle it. So I bit the bullet, and it wasn't pleasant, but they medicated me, and everything was okay, and I kept my dose down. So when I went to the pain clinic last week, I said, I think I want to try to drop my dose again down to 12, cutting it in half. So I did that. It's been about a week, and I'm requiring breakthrough pain pills, which I really wasn't using often on the higher dose of fentanyl. I would use it maybe 2-3 times a week, but now I'm using it like once a day, sometimes twice in a day, or 3 times in 24 hours. So once I get my pain controlled, I can start decreasing. Then I had a great day where I didn't use any at all. But then this morning I was back at it again. So that's the other reason you haven't seen me right away, is because this last week I have been struggling with pain, and I am in a lot of pain. And it's my spondyloarthritis pain from my autoimmune disease. I do have sciatica again in my right leg after doing yard work, and I hope I didn't tweak anything, but I guess I'm just gonna have to live with it. So that is pretty much it. What else is going on? Oh, the wedding stuff is coming up, the shower for my daughter-in-law to be. I bought a bunch of boxes, little boxes, so that I could paint them with different things. They're better boxes than this little beechwood box, but they're jewelry size. So I'm going to paint them for the bridesmaids and the flower girl. And then their gift will be inside that. So that should be a good gift for the girls. And I believe that's it. I've been taking lots of photos with my new cameras on my phone, which are freaking awesome. I posted a few on Instagram, I believe, some ducks and birds, and I posted some, I don't know if I posted the turkeys. That might have been on Facebook, I'm not sure. But I've got these, and I plan on painting some of them. I also plan to start plein air painting. I'm just hoping my pain is controlled. If I fail at this, I will go back up on my dose. My doctor said I could, and I have a prescription at the pharmacy in case I can't handle it, but I'm going to force myself to try to do a month of this. But I'm not going to be miserable for my son's wedding. That's just not going to happen. And I have not had a summer, as you guys know, to be out and enjoy at the beach much, or to go painting, plein air painting, urban sketching, any of that. I haven't done it because I was so miserable. And I think it's been about 6 to 10 years since I enjoyed a summer. So I was really excited at how good I was feeling. And then I go ahead and drop my pain medication dose right before summer starts. And I'm like, duh, what was I thinking, What was I thinking? So if you want to say some prayers that this will work and I don't have to increase my dose. I'd love to get off of it completely. We were going to go on a vacation down south, and we were going to take our RV and just find a place to stay. Finding places along the ocean is pretty much impossible now. They're all filled already. So getting reservations at the last minute is pretty much impossible. But then we thought about a VRBO or Airbnb to do that. And we're kind of running out of time. We would have to leave like this Thursday. This is Monday right now. So I said, you know what? Let's just stay here. On the 21st is my father's memorial. We have to get ready for that. Next Monday, I have a meeting with the pastor to plan his funeral arrangements. And then the day after that, I have a harp recital. And so I'm working hard on some music. I have 4 songs chosen, and I'm either going to play 2 fairly quick songs, or I'm going to play What a Wonderful World. What a Wonderful World was one of my mom's favorite songs, and I love it too. You know that one. I see trees of green, red roses too, da da da, you know that. And I had requested it from my harp teacher to do as a course. One of my harp teachers, this one is in South Africa, and she was going to do, she does these courses, online courses. And finally, after about 4 or 5 months, she put the course out. And it was late intermediate level. And I started playing it for my teacher last week at my lesson, and she said, this should be advanced. Well, I've been practicing it and I'm doing well, but it has 30 lever changes on the harp. When I have to change the key, I have to play, change, play, change, play, change, back and forth and back and forth. And it is difficult. Plus, there's a lot of 7th chords, really odd chords. It sounds so beautiful. It just sounds so beautiful. So I'm working hard on that. I would love to be able to play it for the recital, but when I play in front of a camera or in front of people, I fall apart. So keeping it a little simpler would be better for a recital. Although I'd like to show my skill level, so I want to play that song. And this course came out the day my father died, which is really wild. And I thought, I've got to do this. I've got to do this. So I'm working hard on that. Another thing that happened, you guys, I've been talking almost a half hour. If you're still with me, I have this old clock that sits on my mantle. It's like a miniature grandfather clock. They were made in the 1800s. Mine has etched glass with the Statue of Liberty in it. So it was from probably 1867. Is that when the Statue of Liberty was given to us by France? Whenever that was. They made Liberty everything. So I've got this Liberty clock. And when I was a little girl, it sat on my parents' mantle. And the day after my grandmother died, or maybe it was my great-grandmother, one of them, I had 3 generations of grandparents alive at once. Grandparents, great-grandparents, great-great-grandparents. So one of them died. And at midnight, the day after she died, the clock struck 12 and just kept going and going and going and going and going until it wound down, and it drove my parents crazy. So then we went a long time without even using the clock or having it fixed, and then it would get fixed and it would break again, fixed and break again. I mean, the clock is going on 200 years old, you know, so I have the clock now, and I love this clock. So we sunk a ton of money into it. It's not worth a huge amount of money, but they're worth money. But I have no intention of ever selling it. It's going to stay in my family. The day after my father died, I came home 2 hours from where my father lived. And that night we went to bed, and at midnight, the clock struck 12. And you know the rest. It kept going and going and going. Only it wasn't ringing the chime. It was winding down. And so then it was 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock. And it would end the half hour ding, and then ding, and then ding, ding, and ding, and ding, 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 and ding. Oh my God. So I got up. I couldn't understand what was going on. It was dark. I hit the lock, opened the door, and went to stop the pendulum so that it wouldn't keep ticking, because, you know, it's got a pendulum. And the pendulum was gone. Like, where the heck's the pendulum? So I grabbed the entire clock. I set it on the table. It's still going. And I turned the light on, and there's the pendulum sitting in the bottom of the thing. So I go to hook it up. I couldn't hook it up. I kept trying to find the hook where the pendulum would clip onto so that it would swing. It broke. It broke. This thing is solid metal, and it broke. It broke off. So my husband calls the watch guy, or the clock repairman, back down in the city, 2 hours away, and or 2.5 hours. And he tells him this story, and the guy was like, "Oh my gosh, that's really bizarre." And he said, "Well, this is the deal. The pendulum just broke off. The arm just broke off." And he said, "That never happens. Did it fall?" And he's like, "No, we were asleep and it just broke off." And he said, "Well, that is really weird because that never happens." And I thought, in the Ross family, it does. That's my maiden name. So anyway, it was bizarre. And I thought, okay, Dad, you got me, you know. But yeah, so that's what's going on in my world. Now, I'm going to try to sit and paint, but I won't do it in this video because we've gone a half hour already. But I plan to paint some today and maybe try to clean some. My water's going to be hooked up because we had our last 20-something degree night last night, and now the temps are rising. The next 10 days, we're not going to hit freezing. Woohoo! We might get in the 30s, but not below freezing. So I can have my water back on in my studio. I'm so excited because I've been using those jugs. And so anyway, that's it, you guys. That's my long story, my update, and I'm back to painting. So you'll see me again doing videos. I'm sorry for the wait. I am sorry. But say a prayer for me that I can get through this whole pain issue and be done and have it behind me. I would love that. So I'm still feeling much better than I was, though. I'm exercising, doing yoga, walking. Plan to start bike riding now that it's getting warmer. I'm going to be out plein air painting. I will be active. So, in the meantime, be courageous, paint with wild abandon, and you know, most of all, be kind to each other. God bless y'all. Talk to you soon. Bye.